Everything about wine is very simple. Every time you open up a bottle of wine or champagne or sparkling wine,
So I wanted to say that we're here with Jay Buchsbaum. Is that correctly? I was pronouncing
perfect,
your name.
perfect.
And so I just want to make sure I say this correctly, and if I don't, please correct me, which is you're the VP of Marketing and not consumer education. What was the word you said earlier?
Director of Wine Education.
Director of Wine Education at Royal Wine. And you are one of the hosts on kosher.com's show Swirl, which we're certainly going to hear about. So thank you for being here. I'm excited to talk with you about wine, learn more about kosher wine. I have the feeling that my understanding is not as accurate as it could be and should be. And my hope is everyone watching this and listening to this also is going to learn a lot about kosher wine today. And more importantly, how accessible it is, how delicious it is, and how a good kosher wine can be just as good as every other wine out there. And so it's really about exploring and taking some chances and trying things. But I'm excited to talk about upcoming Passover. I'm excited to talk about food and wine pairings. And I'm excited to learn more about some of the wines that we tasted at the event a few weeks ago. But most of all, I'm just glad to have the conversation with you. So thank
I
you for
just,
being here. Go ahead.
okay.
Starting off very generally, what is your favorite thing about wine? What was the moment that inspired you to get into wine professionally?
My favorite thing about wine is very simple. Every time you open up a bottle of wine or champagne or sparkling wine, it's a celebration. It's not just about the nuances of the varietal or the history of the winery, which is all very interesting and all very exciting and all very stimulating. But I remember my first sales management meeting when I called in all the people from all over the country, which in those days were like four, you know. One of the things that the operations, I had each part of the company tell them what they do. So accounts receivable told them their part, and accounts payable told them their part, production told, and then the owner, who was in charge of operations, got up there and didn't talk about operations. He said, "We're not in the wine business." And everybody looked at him like, "What? No, we're in the wedding business, we're in the bris business, we're in the confirmation business, we're in the celebration business." And that's really what, I'd like to be able to believe what we're doing is bringing a celebration every time someone opens up our wine.
I love that. That's beautiful. Going back to your biography, you are the director of consumer education at Royal Wine, and you're a
Wine
co.
education.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Wine education.
wine education, and you're the co-host of Kosher.com show Swirl. So,
Correct.
what is your background? What is the background and the experience for someone who has these roles? And then, what would inspire someone to pursue these roles for you?
So before I came to Royal Wine, which is only purveys kosher certified wines, I was in the non-kosher wine business. I worked for a large Italian importer, and I took the Grossman's Guide course to wine many, many years ago, about 30 years, more than 30 years ago. But most of all, I've learned about wine from the winemakers themselves and from the vineyard growers themselves and from the blenders and what we call the cellar rats, which are the guys that spend the time and the effort working with the winemakers. That's what gives me, and the fact that I come from the non-kosher background many, many years ago, what I was able to bring a wider view to this kosher wine producing and purveying company. So that's what gives me the background to be able to be the wine education person. But it's like anything else in life. Some people really want to always grow and always learn. And as much as I know, which I think is pretty good amount about wine, I'm always interested in the latest vineyard practices, the latest winemaking practices, the latest grapes that they just discovered, etc. So That's what I'd like to bring, that enthusiasm for growth in knowledge about wine to everybody who I meet.
I love that, the curiosity aspect. And I guess from an educational point of view, just to follow up on that, I would say there's two lanes, in my opinion: those who are always curious and always looking to taste more, and then those who are, I'm going to use the words, intimidated by the process, just in general. And so, just to follow up on that, as because I what the reason I'm fascinated by the educator title is I've always been so happy that when I meet a wine educator, they are so receptive and so open, and they can just answer. I mean, the amount of variety of questions you must get that are both expert level as well as very, very introductory, but also very complicated because the person asking it just has no idea. And so when you walk into a situation like that, what kind of hat must you put on metaphorically, or how can you be so patient and so open to such a broad variety of questions? Or is it just something you've learned in at this point? It's every day is the same, not the same, but you walk into a room and you kind of get a feeling what's going to happen.
So first of all, I'd like to take the snobbery and the myths out of drinking and enjoying wine. And for those people who are not interested, just drink what you like. You know, there's no one of the problems in our industry is that sometimes we make it too complicated, and we think you need to be too sophisticated in order to enjoy it or drink it. The answer is no. Just enjoy it, drink it, and I'll get to your specific question in a minute, but the best way to do that is to go into a retailer that is interested himself. And, when people say to me, what should I taste today? I ask them only two questions: red or white, sweet or dry, right? And then by asking somebody that question, those two questions, well, I like it semi-dry. Okay, that already puts me into a phase of what they might like. And red or white, I like it red. Okay, so then already I know, and then I can give them a small insight. I don't have to be long-winded or whatever, or very complicated or very detailed. I can give them a small insight into what I would suggest. And if they have the interest to go further, then of course I can wax poetic for an hour on any given wine, and love to. But you have to know your audience too. You have to know that the main thing about wine is, God, just enjoy it. Just enjoy it. And if you're interested in more, I'm here, And so that it's really reading your crowd, like a good comedian or like a good whatever.
Right.
I always want to share more. I think that people who want to learn more will enjoy what they're drinking. It's just like food too, some people just want a good steak and don't want to know anything about it. Just give it to me, Others, well, how did you get it to that exact, pinkness inside? And what did you use, fresh pepper, or did you use, just powdered or whatever? And knowing that for many people actually enhances their experience of the dish. And I think the same thing is true of wine. For some people, it doesn't, but for many, many, it does, and I think it always will if you learn more.
That's phenomenal. Thank you. I love the comparison of the food because I personally agree, and I found that a restaurant experience has just only become better and better and better and more elevated the more they share with us how it's being made and produced, and the source of it, etc. So,
I mean, just to your point about that, when I walk into a restaurant and the server is really well informed and tells you about the special in detail, gosh, it gets me. I get chills sometimes, and and then if I order it, I'll actually, maybe it's perception, maybe it's real, but I'll really enjoy it more because I know more about it. So
I 1,000% agree. And just to add to that point, for me, is because I've learned so much about spirits and wine by speaking with people who've made it and understand it. And so, as someone who enjoys food and is learning to cook, that's my favorite part as well. Which is when I'm eating something, expecting an experience based on how it's presented. And then if I can ask somebody, my God, I love this aspect or this mouthfeel, and they have the answer, that just it adds a whole nother level of knowledge and experience and taste. A very big special thank you to Vrbo. With over 2 million bookable vacation rentals, Vrbo connects homeowners with families and vacationers looking for something more than a hotel for their trip. The Vrbo community offers families an array of rental property types such as condos, cabins, lake rentals, beach houses, and more. Discover properties and destinations that everyone dreams of visiting. Vrbo, where families travel better together. Find more information at vrbo.com. That's VRBO.com. Okay, back to the show.